The chill air of late September, usually a welcome reprieve from the relentless Florida sun, felt like an icy judgment on Elias Vance's shoulders. He stood by the main gates of the Grand Vista's Olympic-sized pool deck, his khaki uniform immaculate, a heavy-duty master lock securing the ornamental wrought-iron gate. The closure wasn't arbitrary. It was the annual court-mandated end-of-season protocol. This year they were executing an emergency acid wash, a toxic procedure that rendered the entire deck a biohazard for 72 hours. Elias, the community facilities manager, had sent 3 separate emails, posted 7 signs, laminated and professionally printed, and even put a notice on the electronic bulletin board. Yet here they were. He heard the heels first, a sharp, aggressive click-clack on the imported travertine pavers that always signaled the approach of one particular resident. "Mr. Vance?" The voice was a low, guttural thrum of manufactured entitlement, instantly raising Elias's internal pressure from a manageable 6 to a spiking 10. Elias turned, offering a tight, professionally neutral expression that cost him considerable effort. "Mrs. Croft, good afternoon." Beverly Croft, a woman whose entire persona was a testament to the belief that rules applied only to people who couldn't afford a penthouse, strode up to the locked gate. She wore a pristine white tennis skirt, an expensive-looking visor pulled low, and carried a monogrammed tote bag stuffed with sunscreen. The ensemble suggested she was merely inconvenienced by a minor administrative error, not defying a critical health safety order. "I called your office 10 minutes ago. I was told you were personally overseeing this." "This travesty," she spat the last word like it was rotten fruit. She rattled the chain, the sound echoing sickeningly in the silent, usually bustling pool area. "Mrs. Croft, as the notices stated, the Grand Vista pool is closed until Friday at 8 a.m. It's an environmental control measure." Elias kept his tone steady, clinical. He knew from experience that matching her volume only fed the beast. "Environmental control?" Her laugh was short, sharp, and entirely devoid of humor. "The only environment I'm concerned about is my own relaxation. I was scheduled to have my morning laps at 3 o'clock. My doctor prescribed me 50 lengths a day. This is a medical necessity." "Mr. Vance, I understand your routine, Mrs. Croft, but the pool is currently empty, and the entire basin has been treated with highly corrosive acid to remove calcium buildup," Elias explained, consciously slowing his breathing. "The fumes alone are dangerous. Even if I unlock the gate, which I cannot and will not do, the pool has no water in it." She didn't even glance into the empty gray basin visible through the bars. Her focus remained laser-like on him. "I don't care if you filled it with lava, Mr. Vance. You are a paid employee of the association, which I fund, and my comfort takes precedence over your petty little maintenance schedule. Reopen the facility immediately." "Mrs. Croft, this schedule was approved by the board of directors, a board you sit on incidentally," Elias countered, pulling out the big gun. Her own complicity. "The health department issued the permit. If I allow you to trespass onto an active toxic maintenance site, the association could face tens of thousands in fines, and I would personally face criminal charges." The mention of criminal charges did not scare her. It seemed to excite her. Her eyes narrowed into predatory slits. "You threaten a resident of this community? Is that what I hear? Because I assure you, Mr. Vance, by tomorrow morning you will be scrubbing this pool yourself on unemployment benefits." She pulled out her phone, her thumb hovering over the dialer. "I am going to call the president of the association, and then I am going to call the sheriff's department. You are creating a hostile environment for a resident with a documented medical condition. This is harassment." Elias felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. He was a single father. This job was his entire world. Beverly Croft had the power and the connections to make his life a nightmare, even if she was clearly in the wrong. He stood his ground. "You are free to call anyone you like. Mrs. Croft, I have the work order, the health department closure notice, and the signed safety waiver from the chemical company right here." He tapped the laminated clipboard under his arm. "My hands are tied by state law." Her voice rose to a screech that finally cracked the veneer of expensive calm. "State law? I am a tax-paying member. I want to swim. This is utterly outrageous. I pay your salary and you are refusing my request. Fine, you want to play tough? We'll play tough." She hit a speed dial, spoke 3 clipped, furious sentences to a secretary, hung up, and immediately redialed. This time her voice, though theatrical, held a terrifying edge of conviction. Yes, I need to report a hostile employee and a possible security breach at the Grand Vista Club. I am an elderly resident, and a maintenance worker is refusing to comply with a direct request, creating an immediate and serious hazard to my health and safety. Yes, the pool area. Send a unit immediately. The employee is acting erratically and holding property hostage. Elias watched, detached, as she completely fabricated a crisis. He leaned against the wall, took a deep breath, and sent a text to Brenda in the office. 402 is escalating. Called sheriff. Have the closure documents ready. He waited in silence as Beverly ranted into the dead air, performing for the invisible audience she assumed was already speeding to her rescue. The sun dipped lower, casting long, dramatic shadows across the empty deck. 5 minutes later, the unmistakable wail of a siren began to climb the hill toward the complex's main entrance. Within 90 seconds, a patrol car, clean, white, and professional, pulled up silently by the curb. The officer who emerged was a massive man, easily 6'5", with broad shoulders and an air of complete, weary professionalism. He had a tight, salt-and-pepper haircut and a badge that read, Officer Hayes. Beverly Croft's face immediately transformed from aggressive fury to distressed victimhood. She rushed forward, nearly tripping over her own expensive tennis shoes. Officer! Thank heavens you're here. This man, this thug, she gestured wildly at Elias, is holding the pool area hostage. He's refusing to follow a simple essential request and he's threatening me with felony charges for trying to use the amenity I pay for. He is jeopardizing my medical routine. Officer Hayes paused, looking from the raging, perfectly healthy woman in a designer tennis outfit to the calm, neatly dressed man holding a clipboard next to a gate marked with 3 separate, closed signs. He took a slow, deliberate look at the empty pool basin, then back at Beverly's hysterical face. He pulled a small notepad from his vest pocket. He did not ask for Elias's side of the story. He did not address Beverly's frantic accusations. Instead, Officer Hayes let his gaze land on Elias, and without blinking, he asked the woman in a deep, gravelly voice that silenced her immediately, Ma'am, when you say he's holding the pool area hostage, are you saying he's refusing to let you into the empty pool? Or are you saying he's refusing to fill the pool? Beverly Croft faltered, her face freezing in a perfect expression of indignant confusion. She sputtered, trying to regain control of the narrative. Officer Hayes just gave Elias Vance the faintest, almost imperceptible shake of his head, a silent acknowledgement that this was not the first time he'd dealt with a resident of the Grand Vista. Then, with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of every frivolous 911 call in the county, Officer Hayes reached up and adjusted his uniform hat, his eyes twinkling just slightly. The twitch at the corner of his mouth was unmistakable now, a suppressed, mutual amusement that instantly dissolved the terror of Elias's earlier confrontation. It was the moment Elias knew he was going to be fine. Beverly Croft's face, which a moment before had been a masterpiece of theatrical distress, shattered into a mask of pure, ugly disbelief. Officer Hayes's question, Are you saying he's refusing to let you into the empty pool, or are you saying he's refusing to fill the pool? Was so ridiculously simple, yet it perfectly excised the drama from her self-made crisis. I beg your pardon, she stammered, scrambling to reassemble her persona. That is entirely beside the point. This is a matter of property rights and harassment. I have a doctor's order for water therapy. This employee is obstructing my medical care by arbitrarily chaining shut a communal amenity. He is withholding access to what I pay for. Officer Hayes, still maintaining that expression of professional neutrality that only partially masked his profound boredom, turned his full attention to Elias. The shift was instantaneous. The body language a clear demarcation of roles. Sir, Hayes addressed Elias, his voice dropping slightly in pitch. Can you confirm your position and the legal standing of this closure? Elias, still savoring the taste of victory from the cop's deadpan query, cleared his throat. He handed the laminated clipboard to the officer. Elias Vance, Community Facilities Manager? Officer, the pool is closed under a permit issued by the State Health Department for an emergency acid wash due to severe calcium buildup. The basin is currently treated with high concentrations of muriatic acid. It's a Level 1 OSHA violation to be within 10 feet of the deck right now, let alone attempt to enter. Hayes scanned the official documents, his massive thumb tracing the bold lettering of the Danger Toxic Fumes section. He nodded slowly. And is this closure routine? Was the resident notified? 3 separate emails, 7 physical signs, and a notification on the Grand Vista internal portal. Elias confirmed, pointing to a brightly colored flyer affixed to the fence post directly behind Beverly. Mrs. Croft is aware. She is also a member of the board that approved the annual maintenance budget which covers this closure. The last fact landed like a punch. Beverly gasped, clutching her chest. That is a malicious lie. I abstain from all votes regarding the pool. I demand you arrest this man for hostile endangerment. Hayes closed the clipboard and handed it back to Elias. He turned to Beverly, his face now devoid of any trace of amusement, settling into the stern, uncompromising look of law enforcement dealing with a civil matter. Mrs. Croft, this is a property management dispute, not a police matter. Mr. Vance is operating under valid state permits and association mandate. Furthermore, based on the documentation, the pool area is an active chemical hazard. Any attempt by you to enter would constitute a health safety breach for which the association and potentially you could be liable. He paused, letting the severity of his tone sink in. If you continue to make demands that violate standing health and safety orders, or if you continue to harass Mr. Vance in the execution of his duties, you will be the one facing an obstruction complaint. I will be logging this as a frivolous 911 call, and I suggest you take this up with your board president. Have a nice day. The dismissal was surgical, absolute. Hayes didn't wait for a response. He simply turned, gave Elias a final silent nod of respect, and strode back to his patrol car. The engine rumbled to life, and the police cruiser vanished down the winding drive. Beverly stood rigid, her white tennis skirt stark against the darkening pavers, completely abandoned. The silence was heavier than the earlier screaming. Her chest heaved not from exertion, but from the magnitude of her public defeat. "This isn't over, Vance," she ground out, her voice barely a hiss. "That man is a small-town lackey. You won your pathetic little battle, but you've just lost the war. I promise you, I'm calling an emergency board meeting tonight. You will be gone by dawn." With a final, venomous glare, she spun on her heel and marched away, the rhythmic click-clack of her shoes receding, sounding like a furious clock counting down to Elias's doom. The relief Elias had felt evaporated the moment he walked into his ground-floor office. Brenda, his administrative assistant, a woman with the tenacity of a bulldog and a heart of gold, was already pacing, phone pressed to her ear. She held up one finger, her eyes wide with urgency. "Yes, Mr. Sterling. I understand the optics were regrettable, but Officer Hayes confirmed the facility manager was fully compliant with—" She stopped, listening to the roar on the other end. She hung up abruptly. "That was Sterling," she said, her voice tight. "He's losing his mind." Apparently, Mrs. Croft didn't call him just now. She called him the minute she called 911. And then she called the local news affiliate and reported a community crisis involving armed police presence and illegal chemical dumping. The news van didn't show, thankfully, but Sterling got 3 calls from members asking if we were under a chemical attack. Elias leaned against the doorframe, the adrenaline starting to crash. "What's the fallout?" Brenda took a deep breath. "He's calling an emergency meeting of the board of directors, 8 p.m. tonight. Attendance is mandatory for all 5 members. He also instructed me to inform you that, effective immediately, you are on mandatory administrative leave without pay, pending the outcome of the investigation into your gross negligence and aggressive behavior toward a resident. He wants your keys and badge." Elias, the consequences were immediate, brutal, and entirely disproportionate to the incident. Elias felt the air leave his lungs. Administrative leave was a firing with extra paperwork. Beverly hadn't just gotten him fired. She had done it fast and publicly. His 8-year career, his sole source of income for his daughter Mia, was hanging by a single frayed thread. "My keys are on the desk," Elias said, his voice flat. He stripped off his badge, the plastic snapping slightly as he laid it down. She wasn't just a Karen, Brenda. She's a saboteur. She knew exactly what she was doing. She weaponized the police report and the optics. Elias, we have the police report number. It states the call was unfounded and dismissed. That has to count for something. It counts for nothing against Sterling's need to appease his biggest donor, Elias countered, rubbing the back of his neck. I can't fight the board on procedure. I have to fight her on something she can't spin. He walked to his computer and quickly accessed the association's digital archive. He started pulling every complaint, every written warning, every documented incident involving Beverly Croft over the past 5 years. She was a hurricane of entitlement, but what was her pattern? July 2022, demanded the pool attendant be fired for applying sunscreen too slowly. October 2023, threatened legal action over a wrongly labeled package in the mailroom. March 2024, publicly harassed the landscaper for cutting her hedges 1 inch too short. It was all petty, disposable conflict. But then he found a discrepancy from the previous year. He located the minutes from the October 2024 board meeting. Beverly had indeed abstained from the vote on the pool maintenance budget, but the meeting notes clearly indicated that she had spent 30 minutes arguing against the acid wash, stating, "It inconveniences me too much." His eyes drifted down the document. Near the bottom, there was a minor footnote regarding her medical necessity claim. Last year, she had submitted a doctor's note that requested hydrotherapy for chronic knee pain 3 times a week. This year, she had claimed the exact same condition required 50 laps a day. The two claims were wildly different. A minor inconsistency, perhaps, but it suggested her medical claims were fluid, designed only to exert control. Elias needed leverage. He needed something solid that would not only save his job, but expose her pattern of malicious lies to the entire board. He needed justice, not just a procedural win. The drive home was a blur of grinding anxiety, but the sight of his daughter, Mia, instantly recalibrated Elias's focus. She was 8, sitting at the kitchen table, drawing a messy, vibrant picture of a fantastical creature. He knelt by her chair, running a hand over her hair. "Hey, Bug, I'm heading out for a little bit grown-up stuff. Mrs. Rodriguez next door is going to watch a movie with you, okay?" Mia looked up, her expression bright. "Is it about the pool?" Elias froze. "What did you hear?" "Mrs. Rodriguez was on the phone with Mrs. Chen from the 14th floor, Mia whispered conspiratorially. "She said that lady with the sharp voice tried to get you arrested and now you're in trouble. Are you?" Elias felt a fierce surge of protective anger. The gossip machine of the Grand Vista was fast and cruel, and Beverly Croft's malicious lies were already staining his reputation, reaching even his daughter. "No, sweetie. I'm not in trouble," Elias said, forcing a smile that felt wooden. "I just have to go explain some things to the people who run the building. I always follow the rules, and sometimes grown-ups get confused about the rules. I'm going to unconfuse them." He kissed her on the forehead, the taste of cheap chocolate on her skin a grounding scent amidst the chaos of his life. That kiss was his fuel. This fight was for her. He changed out of his khaki uniform and into his best, if slightly worn, dark suit, the one he usually reserved for annual general meetings. He needed to look less like a maintenance man and more like a professional defending his career. He slipped the encrypted thumb drive into the inner pocket of his jacket. The cold, smooth plastic was the only reassurance he had. The Grand Vista boardroom was a shrine to mahogany, leather, and false prosperity. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the sparkling dark expanse of the closed pool deck, a haunting backdrop to the meeting. Elias arrived at 7:58 p.m., 2 minutes before the scheduled meeting time, and waited in the hall. At precisely 8:05 p.m., Board President Arthur Sterling, a man whose spine had been softened by years of appeasing wealthy residents, cleared his throat. "The meeting is called to order. As you all know, we are here tonight regarding the immediate disciplinary action required following the egregious misconduct of our facilities manager, Mr. Elias Vance, earlier this afternoon. Beverly, please recap your statement for the record." Beverly Croft, seated at the long table among the 5 elected board members, a seating privilege she enjoyed as a former president, leaned into the microphone. She was wearing a chic black dress now, transforming her earlier fury into tragic dignity. "Thank you, Arthur." As I explained to the young officer, I approached Mr. Vance seeking reasonable access to the hydrotherapy amenity that I require daily for chronic, debilitating knee pain, pursuant to my doctor's strict orders. Mr. Vance refused, not only citing spurious health codes, but, and this is key, he became aggressive. He threatened me with criminal charges simply for requesting access. His behavior was erratic, hostile, and designed to intimidate. The presence of the police, which was necessary due to his refusal to cooperate, created unnecessary negative publicity for this community. Beverly's voice was measured and mournful, a complete fabrication, yet delivered with a conviction that made the lie feel real. The board members, 3 of whom were already heavily, leaning toward firing Elias to avoid. Beverly's political wrath looked suitably grave, based on the severity of the claims and the documented police presence. Sterling said, adjusting his tie. "I believe we must move to terminate Mr. Vance for cause, effective immediately, for creating a hostile and unsafe environment. All in favor—" "Excuse me, Mr. President." The sound of Elias's voice, sharp and commanding, cut through the formal proceedings like a rogue wave. Every head snapped toward the back door. Elias stepped fully into the room, closing the door quietly behind him. He stood tall, the dark suit lending him an authority Sterling lacked. "Mr. Vance, what is the meaning of this?" Sterling sputtered, his face flushing crimson. "You are on mandatory administrative leave. You are trespassing. Security should escort you out immediately." "Security can wait, Mr. President," Elias said calmly, walking forward slowly. He stopped at the edge of the conference table, his presence dominating the space. "I am here to defend my 8 years of service against a malicious, fraudulent claim. A claim which you are about to use as justification to ruin my career and my family's future." Beverly laughed, a short, condescending burst of sound. "Oh, please. The theatrics are pathetic, Vance. Just admit you disobeyed orders and accept your dismissal." "I didn't disobey orders, Mrs. Croft. I followed the law," Elias countered, his eyes locked on her. "I followed the OSHA and Health Department mandates you were fully informed of. You, however, disobeyed the law, manufactured a health crisis, and then leveraged the threat of negative media against your president to force my termination." He pulled the thumb drive from his pocket, holding it up for the board to see. "Before you vote, I request 5 minutes to present evidence that this entire episode is a calculated effort by Mrs. Croft to remove an employee who inconveniently enforced the rules against her." Sterling looked panicked. "We will not be blackmailed, Mr. Vance. This is highly irregular. We are voting now." "Irregular, Arthur? Or inconvenient?" It was Helen Cho, the only neutral board member, a retired judge known for her strict adherence to procedure. Her voice was cool and dry. "Mr. Vance has a right to reply to a claim of gross negligence before termination, especially since he came voluntarily." 5 minutes, Arthur." "Let him speak," Sterling swallowed, defeated by Cho's stern gaze. "Fine, but 5 minutes only, Vance, and make it quick." Elias walked to the projector set up in the corner, plugged in the thumb drive, and within seconds, his defense was displayed on the large screen. "Exhibit A," he announced, pointing to a scanned PDF. "This is a note submitted by Mrs. Croft last year, supporting her need for hydrotherapy due to chronic knee pain, requesting 3 sessions a week." "Exhibit B." The screen switched, showing the notes from her secretary this morning. "Immediate requirement for 50 laps a day. The claims are inconsistent, but that's not the lie." He clicked again, pulling up a board meeting minute from the previous year. "Mrs. Croft claims she abstains from all pool-related votes. True. But here is the minute detailing 30 minutes of her lobbying against the acid wash schedule, stating it was an inconvenience. The motivation board members is simple convenience. Not medical need." Beverly began to stand up, her face twisted in rage. "You're rummaging through old documents. This is irrelevant." "Oh, it's relevant, Mrs. Croft, because this is what happened yesterday afternoon." Elias clicked the mouse. The screen went dark, then flickered to life, showing crystal-clear security camera footage dated the day before the pool closure, 2:45 p.m., on the Grand Vista's exclusive, rarely used tennis court 3. The footage showed Beverly Croft, not hobbling, but moving with astonishing athletic vigor. She was engaged in an intensely competitive doubles match. She lunged, backhanded a volley, and then in slow motion, the camera zoomed in as she sprinted toward the net. She jumped, pivoted hard, and smashed the ball over the fence, landing with a jarring impact that would cripple a truly chronic knee. She wasn't seeking gentle hydrotherapy. She was playing competitive, high-impact tennis, and she looked perfectly healthy. A collective gasp went around the mahogany table. Helen Cho adjusted her glasses, a sharp, knowing look crossing her face. Beverly Croft's jaw dropped. She knew the board would overlook a little lie, but she never imagined her private life was being recorded and used against her. She had been publicly, definitively exposed as a fraud. The final devastating shot came not from the tennis footage, but from Elias's final click. The screen went back to a single image. The police report filed by Officer Hayes. Elias read the final, short, damning sentence aloud. Caller determined to be engaging in a malicious, unfounded dispute with community staff. Referred to civil remedies. 911 call deemed frivolous. Elias looked at Sterling, who was now sweating profusely. He looked at Beverly Croft, whose face was a study in pure, unadulterated shock and karmic justice. Elias had done it. He had exposed the lie. The boardroom fell into a dead electric silence, thick with the smell of ruined reputation. The consequences of Beverly's actions and Sterling's attempt to cover for her were now undeniable. The silence in the mahogany-paneled boardroom was not empty. It was pressurized, vibrating with 5 distinct strains of fury, embarrassment, and dawning political calculation. Board President Arthur Sterling's face was the color of raw liver. He stared at the screen, unable to reconcile the image of Beverly Croft, his patron and terror, playing tennis with the whimpering victim he was supposed to protect. Beverly, however, was past mere shock. Her humiliation had curdled instantly into homicidal rage. She slapped the table with a sound that cracked the silence. "That footage is illegal! It's an invasion of privacy. I demand to know how you, a suspended employee, accessed private security archives," she shrieked, lunging half out of her chair toward Elias. "This is grounds for a restraining order." "You are obsessed! You are a stalker!" Before Sterling could stammer a response, Helen Cho, the retired judge, brought the hammer down. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the chaos like a laser. "Settle, Mrs. Croft. That footage is of a shared community amenity, visible to hundreds of residents. There is no expectation of privacy on Court 3, Mr. Vance. While accessing records on leave is a procedural violation, it is justified under the whistleblower clause for defending against documented workplace harassment and fraudulent claims." Cho leaned forward, addressing Sterling with cold authority. "Mr. President, the core motion before the board, the immediate termination of Mr. Vance, was predicated on the allegation of aggressive behavior and creating a hostile environment, which was substantiated solely by Mrs. Croft's statement and her subsequent frivolous 911 call. We now have irrefutable proof, provided by the Sheriff's Department itself and our own cameras, that Mrs. Croft fabricated the medical necessity and maliciously misled both Mr. Vance and this board." Sterling tried to salvage his position, wiping a bead of sweat from his temple. "But the media risk, Helen. The negative publicity still happened because of his presence." "No, Arthur," Cho corrected him icily. "The negative publicity happened because a resident of this community falsely claimed a chemical emergency and police standoff. Mr. Vance's presence was a necessary compliance measure. His integrity, conversely, has just saved the association from a potential wrongful dismissal lawsuit and exposure to a clear pattern of harassment. The motion to terminate is dead." The other 3 board members, all silent until now, weighing which side of the power struggle was heavier, began nodding vigorously in agreement with Cho. The power structure had visibly shifted. Beverly Croft was exposed. Elias Vance held the moral and evidentiary high ground. "I move to immediately reverse the administrative leave," Cho declared, not asking, but stating. and to issue a formal written warning and censure to Mrs. Croft for misuse of association resources, fabrication of a medical claim, and frivolous reporting to emergency services. The vote was a swift, unanimous 4-0. Sterling, defeated, simply waved a limp hand. The motion passes. Mr. Vance, your administrative leave is immediately revoked. You are reinstated with full pay, effective immediately. Elias felt a dizzying mix of relief and exhaustion. He had won. He was safe. He nodded, accepting the victory with quiet professionalism. Beverly Croft's eyes, however, were blazing with a cold, terrifying light. She hadn't moved since the vote. She stood slowly, gathering her coat and her monogrammed tote, her voice dropping back to the low, ominous thrum Elias had heard earlier at the pool gate. "You think this is over, Mr. Vance?" she asked, not looking at the board, only at Elias. "You think a few procedural votes and a slap on the wrist for me changes the reality of this town? You won your job back, but you embarrassed the wrong people. I am not just a board member here. My husband funds the city councilman's campaign. I sit on the zoning board. I am connected to every development company that wants a contract in this county." She leaned across the table, her voice a poisonous whisper that carried clearly in the silent room. "You think you exposed me? You exposed yourself, Elias. You showed them you're a problem, and problems get removed." With that final chilling threat, Beverly Croft swept out of the boardroom. The slam of the door resonated like a shot. Sterling immediately descended into a flurry of damage control, ordering Brenda to draft the necessary documentation and demanding Elias produce a formal, sanitized report of the incident. "Vance, I need you to understand. You are back on the job, but tread lightly. Very, very lightly," Sterling stressed, running a hand through his thinning hair. "We cannot afford to escalate this. Just focus on the pool. Get it open Friday." Elias spent the next hour documenting the incident, feeling the lingering weight of Beverly's threat. It wasn't just a bitter threat. It felt like a promise of something far larger than just the grand vista. Back in the safety of his office, Elias powered down his computer. The desk phone immediately rang, a private number showing as unknown caller. He hesitated, then answered. "Hello, Vance speaking." The voice on the other end was distorted, synthesized, unrecognizable. It spoke only a single metallic sentence. "The acid wash is the least of your problems. Check the pump house data logs from last Thursday." Croft's friend was there. The line went dead. Elias stared at the disconnected phone. The acid wash was the least of his problems? He thought back to his initial confrontation with Beverly. She hadn't just wanted the pool reopened. She had wanted him gone before the acid wash was completed. A new surge of ice-cold adrenaline hit him. If Beverly's connections went as deep as the zoning board, and if she was willing to lie about a debilitating injury to force the pool open, what was she trying to cover up in the brief window before the closure? He immediately brought up the centralized data log system, bypassing the main interface to dive into the raw internal network logs of the filtration system. He navigated to the pump house access logs for last Thursday, the day before the closure was scheduled. The list of standard maintenance pings was clean, except for one line marked with a timestamp of 1:17 a.m., long after maintenance had left. Access alert, pump house sublevel, RFID card, 887B, user, P. Jenkins, vendor access, plumbing and drainage, expired Q2, P. Jenkins, an expired vendor access card used in the middle of the night. Plumbing and drainage, Elias's gut twisted. He knew exactly who Croft's friend who was there might be. Patrick Jenkins, Beverly's nephew who ran a shady, often-fined small-time construction company. The board had repeatedly barred from bidding on Grand Vista, contracts due to poor quality, and Jenkins's name was tied to plumbing and drainage. Elias looked at the empty pool deck outside his window. The closure wasn't just about calcium. Something was potentially dumped, fixed, or hidden in the pipes before the acid wash could eliminate the evidence. The stakes had just escalated from a job conflict to a possible criminal environmental hazard, shielded by Beverly Croft's political power. He had to get into the pump house and check the physical logs before Jenkins or Croft realized he was looking.